Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's weekly wrap up. I know that probably nobody's in here as of right now, but there's quite a few things that I want to talk about this week. And I want to preface this first by saying apologies for looking, I don't know, like a mess. This week has been a long one. I have been preparing for a pole showcase. So for those who don't know, I do like pole dance on a semi-regular basis, and once a year, the studio that I go to does this big showcase for all of the people who attend. And so I'm doing a routine with a couple of the other girls, and it's been a lot of work this last couple weeks, but especially this week. Word to the wise, if you're thinking about getting into pole, it's wonderful. Like, it's a great sport, and I highly recommend it. But do not go every single day for 5 days in a row. Give yourself some time to relax and like recover, because that's been my biggest thing. Also, secondly, I probably look like a mess because I am tired. I woke up at 5:30 this morning for work. And I have to do that again tomorrow because I'm also working tomorrow, and it is currently 11 p.m. So apologies if, again, I look like a mess. I will hopefully finish this in a somewhat timely manner, but still interesting and entertaining to you guys. But then I am just diving into bed. Like, I have some stuff like to get ready for bed, but I am sleeping immediately. So yes, apologies if I'm not like my super high energy self. Not that I'm always that high energy. But anyway, thank you everyone who pops into these during when I'm live, and also those who come to watch it after the fact. I really appreciate it. And it seems to be going well. This marks my fifth weekly wrap up. I don't remember. But it means I've been doing it like a month-ish, which is a success, I think. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. But yeah, so I'm going to just get straight into it. I have novels, a couple novels I want to talk about first, then manga. I have quite a bit of manga. So the first thing, and I'm going to be doing the banners thing because I think that's a good idea, like a good way to make sure that people know what I'm talking about, even if I'm not holding it up. But the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is Bakuno. Well, actually, I brought both of them out, but I'm talking about this book in particular, which is Bakuno 2002 Side B, Blood Sabbath, which is the second half of this story arc. So I'm a big Bakuno fan. If you're not familiar with this series, it's a light novel series. It also has an anime, which is very out of print, unfortunately, and not streaming anywhere because it used to be a Funimation title. Aniplex took the rights back, and once their Blu-ray edition went out of print, it's just had nothing done with it since. But regardless, so Bakuno is a series written by Ryogo Narita, who is also known for Durara fame. I personally prefer Bakuno, and I think a lot of people do. Of those who have watched both or either, or read both or either. Bakuno follows, there's three separate storylines. The main storyline follows a group of 1930s individuals, New York, as well as Chicago. Some who are gangsters, some who are immortals, some who are just like in street gang. When I say gangsters, I mean like mafioso. But we also have like street gangs, and then like the uber wealthy. There's a whole, but if you know this writer, you know that he has a lot of characters, and all of the stories kind of intermingle. All these characters interact with each other over the course of the entirety of the series. This is volume 13 of this series. It's technically ongoing. I think there's 23 volumes out in Japan, and as I said, it's the second half of this series. The first one being Side A, Bullet Garden. But this, so as I said, there's 3 different storylines. The first one following these 1930s characters, and it has a supernatural element to it where there are some characters who have gained immortality through various ways, various circumstances. So some of the characters who are in the 1930s, we see them in the second storyline, or story, I guess, era, which is the early 18th century, like 1705, which we've only gotten one of those books in English as of right now. And then the third story arc, or third story period, is this modern day 2001, 2002 setting. Again, you do actually see a lot of familiar faces because we do have immortal characters who do not age and do not die. So in the first book, we have oh my god. In the first book, so there's two sister cruise ships, right? The Entrance and the Exit. The Entrance is leaving from New York, heading to Japan, or is it from New York to Japan? I feel like that, but how would they get there? Maybe it's from Los Angeles to Japan. I don't remember. And then the Exit does the same trip, but the opposite way. Hi, Tay. Thank you for popping in. But on this ship, or on the first ship, we have Firo and Ennis, who are going on their honeymoon because they've only been together 70 years, but they finally tied the knot. So they're celebrating their honeymoon, quote unquote. Ches is there as well because it's like, oh, it's a family affair. And he's like, I don't want to third wheel your honeymoon. And they're like, no, it's better if you come. And he's like, oh, God, please, no. But the other two are so useless. I mean, it only took them 7 decades. But anyway, so we are introduced to some of the progeny of other characters, namely these two, who maybe look familiar to those who are familiar with the series, Claudia and Sharon. Yes, Claudia and Sharon Walker. And then we also have some other. So this story focuses on the Entrance cruise ship and the various things that are happening on that. And then the one that I actually read, because I read that ages ago, and I've had this for ages. I just hadn't read it yet. This is what was happening on. Hi, Aisha. Thank you for popping in, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to pop in with the group chat today, but I did have work, and you can tell I'm very tired. But so this one focuses on the other ship, the Exit, and so so we have the character. Some of the characters from the Entrance are on here. So you see, we have Ches. We also have Illness, who's a new character. But the Exit characters, we see Elmer and Sylvie and some other people who may be familiar to those who are familiar with Baccano. And yeah, there is a group called the Mask Makers who are somewhat relevant to our immortal characters, who are trying to get the immortals because for revenge. And so that's why they're doing this. And then there's also a cult called Space or Shape or something. I can't remember what they're called. But they are not a fun time. Sample. I just saw the acronym. Sample. There's a cult called Sample there who are also trying to get the immortals because they see them as like gods. Who are also somewhat related to our immortal characters. And so, yeah, also, okay, so I am a big Baccano fan, but I do only follow the series as it comes out. in English via the novels. I never read the fan translations. I was first introduced to it via the anime, like a lot of people, I think. But there was a very healthy fan translation of this for many, many years, which is how a lot of people did read the novels originally before Yen Press licensed them. But so there's been times where I've been talking about Bakuno and talking about and certain people who are in the know who've read more than I had at this point, where it's oh, who's the worst character? Which character do you hate? I might do a question answer meme type thing for Bakuno characters, and I would say a certain character, and wait, what? That's your least favorite character? That's the worst character? And then I'm well, I mean, I've only read up to this book, and oh, that makes sense because this character, the worst character has been introduced, and I'm oh, okay. And this is the book. Well, actually, this one as well, but this is the book where the actual villain of the piece is introduced. Oh boy. Okay, I'm just gonna say poor Ches. Oh my, I love that boy, but oh, that poor kid's life is suffering. I mean, literally the last shot of this book is that. I'm Ches, why? Oh, this poor boy. But it was a great book. I expected it to be. I love Bakuno. I legitimately love it. Also, holy moly, we're introduced to this character, aging queen. Honestly, love her. We get with all of the Bakuno novels, every book, you're just introduced to so many more characters. There's so many more people to follow, and it's not confusing. I don't find it hard to read or anything, and I think the translation is very good because it's quite clear as to who's speaking at all times. But yeah, if you haven't tried Bakuno, I highly recommend this light novel. It's my favorite light novel series coming out right now, bar a couple, but I think it's definitely one of my favorite. And if you are wanting to try a light novel series, they're not super long, but also this one isn't an isekai. It's not set in a high school club. It doesn't have really problematic asshole main characters. I mean, it has asshole characters, but they're not meant to be. Well, I mean, that's also not true. It's not the wish fulfillment of the high school loser who thinks he's hot shit because he can play video games, which is more typical in light novels. And I know for those who don't know, well, nobody would know because we only do this in private chats, but I've been bullying Aisha to start this series. I have her pretty close. I want more people to read this series. But this particular arc, I wasn't super. I didn't think it was the best thing ever when I was reading the first half of it. It was fun. It's always a fun time. But then I got into this one, and you do read more of the backstory and how all of this fits together. And then it introduces this book has 3 prologues, which is pretty typical, and then 3 chapters, the last one of which is 100 pages, a couple interludes, and then it has before the ending, it's the ending of the events, right? It's the end, right? And then it has a middle word, so the author's note message to the fans, and then it has interlude B. And Naruto was the whole reason I wrote this story, the whole reason I wrote this arc was for these 12 pages. So enjoy. And I read them, and this is when it actually makes the villain obvious. And I was holy shit. That was good. That was I don't know how things are gonna go from here, but I'm really looking. I think volume 14 is out already. which means that I need to get it because I guess, as I said, I love the series, but I have fallen behind on it a little bit. I fell behind on light novel reading just in general a little bit, so I'm trying to get more, I don't know, on top of it, as it were. But yeah, Bakuno, read it. Everyone, read it. And the Yen Press editions are lovely. They're hardcover. That one stuff. So yeah. Then I have some actual novel. I mean, those are novels, but they're like nerdy novels. And the next one is like, novel is a loose term for it. The next book that I read, I should say, is one that I got a little while ago, and that's Bill Bryson's African Diary, A Short Trip for a Worthy Cause. I've mentioned before that I'm really a fan of Bill Bryson's writing. I love his stuff. He's a wonderful nonfiction travelogue writer. He was a journalist in a former life. He's an American, but he spent and has spent his adult life in the UK. And so a lot of his books focus on travel, on the UK, on America, and sort of I don't know. He has a very witty and captivating tone to his writing. So this is just a teeny little book. It's 60 pages, 5 or 6 of which are color, like photography. But this was a book done in coordination with CARE International, which is a charity. I'm sure a lot of people would know. They help people all across the world. Their main sort of focus is to get rid of poverty globally. And so the charity itself actually invited him, Bill Bryson, to come to Kenya to see sort of the country, and then also some of the good works that they were doing, and sort of how life was for the Kenyan people, and the culture and all of this stuff, and then write a book about it. Again, a short little book, and all of the proceeds that this book had, this came out in like 2001, 2002, so it's an older book now at this point. But all of the proceeds to these that were sold, 100% went to the charity to help with their, various projects, both in Kenya and across the world. And so that's a lot of people like who worked quite hard on this, editors, publishers, obviously Bryson himself. That all of the royalties, everything, was put into this book. It was really, it was short, it was sweet. I have never been, and if I could actually focus, I don't know what the camera's been doing today. I know it sometimes goes in and out of focus, but this has been like a crazy, crazy, crazy thing today. I've never been to the African continent. I'd love to go one day. But it just hasn't been something that I've had the opportunity to do. I do have a couple friends from Africa, both, black, white, Indian as well. So I know several South Africans. I know some Angolans. I know some Zimbabweans, and Ethiopians as well. So I do know Africans, but I have never been to Africa, and certainly not to Kenya. But again, I would love to one day. It's really interesting reading, not only from Bryson's perspective, because, it's not everyone's going to relate to an old white man. But he does have a pretty fun, like, self-aware sense that he doesn't know anything about this country, and he doesn't know anything about the people or the culture there, and a lot of his assumptions on what are problems versus what isn't, is very formed from just his privilege from being a white American outside of just completely removed from these issues. But if you are wanting, I don't know how much has changed, but there's a really interesting part in here about the sort of the hugely populated slums in Kenya, like right in Nairobi, as well as the refugee camps, and sort of how they're portrayed outside of Kenya and outside of Africa, and then also, but how they are a part of this community now and how they function. And obviously, all of these people are people, like they're normal people, but for so many, they are seen as charity cases. They're seen as like, oh, we need to help them because of this, that, and whatever else. And it was yeah, I've been wanting to read this. I knew it wasn't super duper long, and I knew that I wanted to read something that I owned before I jumped into a library book. So yeah, I picked this one up, and well, I had it, but I finally got around to reading it, and it was good. It was good. It would be interesting to see if he ever makes a return to Africa, despite being a travel writer, yeah, sort of more famous for his travelogue stuff. He isn't that much of an adventurous traveler, which is so like this was very much out of his comfort zone, and I applaud him for like attempting to do it and trying to do something positive for the charity in doing so. So yeah, and if I don't know if you can still get these like from the charity itself or from a direct bookseller. I was able to, but I don't know if you can only get it secondhand now. I don't know. It's an old book. It's almost 2 decades old, so I don't have the answers. Next is a library book, which again, like maybe people aren't that interested in, but this was another Discworld novel. Super excited to read this one because this one is sort of a standalone novel, and I think you can read this without reading anything else in Discworld, and you will still enjoy this. So this was Monstrous Regiment by Terry Pratchett. This is the 31st of the 40-something books in Discworld. And so I'll read the back. It's not really a thing, but so yeah, the blurb is like, women belong in the kitchen. Everyone knows that. Not in jobs, pubs, or trousers, and certainly not on the front line. But there is a war on. So what this is a novel set in the Discworld world, not in Ankh-Morpork, which is sort of the main city of the Discworld novels. It's set in like a neighboring country. It's like Borogovia, something along those lines, which is very militaristic or maybe warfaring country. They like to fight with their neighboring country a lot over a very particular border, which is only ever like really shown. The boundary is by this river that changes all of the time when the season changes. So they're always at war. They also have a god, a religious god that is very fickle, who's always saying like, this is now an abomination. You can't do that. You can't do this. And their god has basically like outlawed everything. Meanwhile, they also have sort of deified their duchess, their monarch. Anyway, regardless of all this, so there's a lot of internal issues in this country, to say the least. But so we have our main character, Polly, who decides to go on a Mulan-esque quest. She joins the military in order to find her older brother, who has previously joined the military. And he's not too bright. He's not like the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's lovely. And she knows that she needs him around if she wants to take over the pub, because women are not allowed to do anything. They're not allowed to run anything. They're not allowed to have businesses. Good question, Zach. I haven't actually read all of the Discworld stuff. I like the Witches series, which obviously focus on the witches. I like the Small Gods storylines as well. I like maybe kind of controversially, I do like the Moist Lipwig books, which are sort of the later ones. But this one is a really good standalone one. I'm trying to think of what the other really good standalone. The death novels are really, really good as well. But that's the great thing about Discworld is you can actually like jump around. I kind of generally love all of them. I would say that the Rincewind or the Unseen University books are sort of my least favorite, but in saying that, they're still a lot of fun. But so this particular, we have a character. She's pretending to be a boy and has joined the military. And there's a whole bunch of, like, she's in a small regiment, and she's changed her name to Oliver, and there's four other boys. Well, the regiment's more than that, but there's 4 other human boys, and then there's an Igor who, if you've read Discworld, you know, is like a clan, a mountain clan from, you know, like Frankenstein has an Igor as his assistant. That's what they are. They're just those. Really wonderful, great at stitching people back together and making crazy ideas work and working for crazy people. And this Igor has decided to join the good fight or whatever. We also have a troll and we also have a vampire, all of which have joined this regiment, which is some of the reason they have the title of the Monstrous Regiment. They also unexpectedly fought some soldiers that they didn't expect to win against. But so Polly, she's pretending to be a boy, trying not to be found out. Their sergeant, who's in charge of them, he's very like very enthusiastic about them, and then they're passed off to a lieutenant who just has zero experience on the battlefield, but he's read a lot of books about it, so he's very keen, and he like wants to be a hero. He wants to have something named after him. But little does Polly realize that perhaps she is not the only girl who has joined the regiment, and perhaps she is not the only girl who's joined the army in general. And it's, yeah, so I mean, this is kind of a girl power book. It's great. It's a lot of fun, and it does have that sort of fantasy humor twist to it. All of the characters are really strong. And cannot speak. You do see some of the character mentioned in passing, like from the Guard, like the City Watch series. So Commander Vimes and Angua, I think, are the 2 that we see definitely. There's also a picture in this one, which is a political comic in universe of this book, but it's a fun one. I think a lot of these because these are like the fancy edition. I mean, this is the library copy that I had, but these editions are like fancy gift versions. But all of the ones that are part of the Industrial Revolution collection are pretty standalone, so you don't need to like jump into the very beginning to understand them, and they are typically focused on industrial types of stuff. But yeah, it was a really fun novel. It's a thick one. Like it's the later Discworld books do get longer and longer. Like if you compare this to Mort, which is the first book in the Death series, that one's like teensy compared. So you do certainly get bang for your buck with this one. So yeah, really happy to read more Discworld. I do have some other Discworld to read, some later books than this that I've gotten from the library. So just keep on keeping on, I guess. Next, I'm going to actually talk about some manga, which I'm sure people are more interested in. So first off is Revolutionary Girl Utena, After the Revolution by Chiho Saito and B Papas, which is Ikuhara and the group that he put together to do the anime or the manga for the anime. This is a direct sequel spin-off to the manga version of Utena, which Viz has put out previously. It was written 20 years after the original manga. It's only 3 chapters long, and it focuses on the members of the student council. So the first chapter we have Sayonji and Toga, who are both like they run into each other at an art auction or something, and then they go back to Otori Academy, and they're looking for some mysterious painting that used to belong to like the dean, called the Revolution or Revolutionary or something. I don't remember. Well, so they do that, and they're trying to uncover the mystery. It's I mean, if you're expecting Utena to ever make any sense immediately, then you're in the wrong fandom, honestly. Like there's but they do, and they manage to, I guess, make a decision as to what they want to do. And it literally is like these characters 20 years in the future. They haven't changed much, let's be real, but it is meant to be 20 years in the future. The second chapter is focused on Juri, who is now a famous oh my god, I went too far. A famous fencer, fence player. I don't remember. Well, fencer is correct, yeah. And she's struggling over her feelings for her manager / friend, and some mysterious man who was her friend's fiance, and had some stuff which is related to the show, and it's kind of directly referencing stuff, but I don't want to ruin it if people haven't read or watched it. But yeah, it focuses on Juri, and then the last chapter focuses on Miki and Kozue, his twin sister, mainly on Miki and him struggling to accept his sister's feelings, and then because of his struggle with that and her subsequently falling into a coma, him being unable to play the piano or finish the piano song that he was writing. It's very Utena. There's a lot of, Utena shows up, like, and Anthe, like they both show up. But this isn't necessarily their story. This isn't necessarily about them. They're there for maybe moral support isn't the right word, but they're certainly show up to show the way for these characters. If you're a fan of Utena, if you're a fan of the manga, the anime, if you're a fan of Ikuhara's series in general, this may be one to look into. It's nice that we did finally get this in print. It's nice that we got a really fancy version of the manga in print thanks to Viz. So yeah, it's one that I had been meaning to get for a little while. It is a newer release, but I only read the manga kind of, I think, earlier this year. I can't even remember, but it wasn't too long ago that I read the manga for the first time, so being able to get this pretty quickly afterwards was good, was fun. Yeah, so I may talk a little bit more about it in my pickups video, but I don't know. Maybe I don't need to expand on it too much. I don't want to ruin it for people. Next, one of my favorite series, and I was super excited to. I read this one today. I got home from work and was like, I'm treating myself and reading this book. And that is A Bride Story, Volume 12 by Kado Mori. The series continues to be like so beautiful, just so beautiful. So look, we got cover, and then back cover. It's so lovely. So the first 2 chapters, oh my gosh, so I adore this series, literally. So the first chapter focuses on all of the different characters, basically, that we've seen thus far. Who are the first chapter is all of the characters, including like Mr. Smith and Amir and Karluk and the twins and these two, all of the characters who we've met so far are in this chapter, and it's just basically like, oh, there's not much to do, kind of bored, like just spending the time hanging out. Aisha, girl, you need to. I don't get like this about very much, but for everyone, for anyone and everyone, if you have not yet tried A Bride Story, you are missing out on one of the best things that is coming out right now. Honestly, like, it's so good. Look how beautiful, just look how beautiful that is. Look at it. If you're someone who loves beautiful women, then you owe it to yourself to read Kawamori's works. And if you're someone who likes very handsome men, and not underage, I mean, there's young boys in this as well, but if you like handsome men, there's plenty of those as well. So really, there's something for everyone here. But it was like nice to hang out with all of the characters and just doing nothing. And I especially laughed. Like, I actually like initially reading the twins' story, like when they were first introduced. They're young and they're kind of annoying, so they're not my favorite characters, but I did like this particular part. Oh, their poor husbands. Like, oh, these kids, these children. So yeah, they're just basically like, oh, there's nothing to do. Let's just hang out. And then the second chapter of this, a quiet point or whatever it is 100% focused on best girl Paria. She's trying to find someone to do her sewing with, or her beading or embroidery. And everyone else like has something to do, or is sick, or she's not confident to go see them. And I love her so much. I mean, again, if you're reading this and you don't want everything to go well for Paria, we can't be friends. We can't be friends. Yeah. Oh my God. So, okay. Best reaction. I love, as I said, these. Look at the sheer terror on those children's faces. I know they're adults in their culture, but they're like 14. They're children. I laughed. I laughed pretty hard. And then there's a cat chapter, and then there's a really beautiful hair. If you got a thing for hair, sexy hair on women, this chapter. I don't know how Kawamori is able to make things so sensual, but she does. So I haven't even explained what this series is whatsoever yet. But A Bride Story focuses on multiple different characters in Central Asia, most of whom our main characters are Amir and Karluk, her husband. Amir, and they're sort of an odd couple in that Amir is the oldest boy of his family, but in saying that, he's the youngest child, so he's 12 years old. And not Amir, Karluk is. Apologies. Amir is his wife, who is far too old. She's missed the boat. She's 20 years old, and she had sort of some marriage proposals and stuff before, but things never really worked out. So she was finally like married off to Karluk's family, and she comes from a very different culture, a more nomadic tribe. And so part of it is her as a fish out of water, finding her place in her new family and, understanding the people around her. Meanwhile, there's also a English character from England called Mr. Smith, or I think his name is Henry Smith, who's sort of an anthropologist. And he in the early books, he's a guest of Karluk's family, again, trying to learn the culture, and that's him on the back taking the photos. And so a lot of the story is him like traveling through the Central Asia, like Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan and all of these countries that get forgotten, Middle East, Central Asia areas. And on his travels and on his, discovering more people and discovering more cultures, he meets other women, other brides, and the culture around these people, but their weddings and their relationships and women and hunting and community and family. And it's beautiful. It is beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Kawamori anyway. I can't show you the last chapter. Okay, also, like, so there's our main bride, who is Amir. We have these two who are, they're sworn sisters, but they have her husband, like, under her suggestion, married this woman after she was widowed, and because those two are very close. So if that's something you like, if you like sapphic stuff, then again, Kawamori, she's got your back. We also have Henry and his possible love life. We have Paria, who is a girl in the Karluk's village, who is Amir's friend, and she's sort of getting to the age where she's just getting a little too old. She might not be able to find a husband if she doesn't hurry up. In saying that, she's like 14. So again, like, if you dislike the age gap stuff, it is culturally appropriate. I understand if you're not into it, and longtime viewers know that I'm not an age gap person, but culturally it was seen as not weird for 12-year-olds to be getting married. Do with that what you will. The twins, and I think they're husbands or brothers. I can't remember. Maybe they're friends or cousins or something. It doesn't matter. And is there other brides in this? I don't think so. I think that's all of them. But yeah, this chapter, the hair chapter, that is Karluk's oldest sister and her husband, and them just hanging out, talking about hair. And then so at the end, where is it? At the end of this book, I can't show you the last chapter, but in the lead up to, it's the second last or one of the last chapters, we see Henry's family back in good old England. Like, Kawamori will take every opportunity to talk about Victorian England because she loves it. She's a big Maid fan, which is why she wrote Emma. She's just like, she knows what she likes, and honestly, she's living her best life, and I'm here for it. But it's nice to see sort of his family and the complete difference in culture, between what he's experiencing, in a very, very different country versus the people who are waiting for him back home. It's great. It's wonderful. If you have not started reading this, give it a shot. Please do. It is ongoing. This is the most recent volume. Emma is her other work that is completed in 5 2-in-1 omnibus volumes. Check it out. And that one is Victorian England maids, very self-indulgent, and also very, very good. So either or, read them. But this was such a treat because it takes, like, this is a slow release. It's a Harta magazine series, which is a monthly magazine, and so it's a slow, slice of life seinen. So once we've caught up, it takes about a year for us to get a new volume, which is sad, but I cherish it when we do. Next. Also, again, before I move on, and as I said, I'm not going to show you the last chapter because it is 100% in the women's bathhouse, which is why chapter 7, which is when these characters were introduced, was also wrapped in plastic because there is a lot of titty, like a lot. And if you're into, like, if you like body positivity, if you like a whole wide range of, there's some that, if you like women, there is a woman with the body type that you like in this manga with her shirt off. So like, that may be a reason as to why you want to read the series, but you should actually read it because it is really good and the characters are wonderful and it is really interesting. And as Zach said, it is really nice to have a historical manga set in, like, the Middle East and Central Asia, these areas that aren't really often covered in Western media and Japanese media. It's sort of normally if you're watching or reading stuff set in those areas, it's from creators from those areas, or whose families are from those areas. So it's really nice. And Karamori is really good at her research. In her author's note, actually, she was talking about how she finally made the trip to Tajikistan, which was the only country of the 5 Central Asian countries that she hadn't been to yet. So, like, she's in for it. Like, she's dedicated. So yeah, definitely pick it up if you want to, if that sounds like your thing. Next is another series that I was really excited to continue reading because I was a stupid person and bought a volume of this and then didn't have the volume from the last. So I had a volume missing. I couldn't read the newest volume that I bought because I didn't realize that I didn't have the volume before it. I finally got that last week. And so I was happy and excited to finally catch up with. We are very far behind on the English, like, Japanese release versus the English release. But I was finally able to read volumes 8 and 9 of Snow White with the Red Hair. I love this. I love this series. This is a ongoing shoujo series, sort of another historical series. It's not set in any, like, actual place. It's not a fantasy though, or maybe it's like low fantasy, but there's no magic in it. It's just set in not our world, therefore not our history, right? It's more of a, like, the kingdoms that you see in, like, Disney movies. They're not set in our world necessarily. Like, Cinderella isn't like in a specific country. It's just a country with a castle and some royals and stuff. And I'm glad that everyone in the comments seems to be keen for a bride story. Pick it up. But also, if this sounds like your thing, it is really, really good. We follow Shirayuki, who is this girl here, who In the first books, she's running away from her home kingdom. She was, I think she was an orphan. She'd recently been orphaned. Her grandparents had died, and the prince of that kingdom had heard she had beautiful, bright red hair, wanted her either to be like his wife or a concubine or something, something along those lines. And she was working as a herbalist for the people in her town, and was like, no, I don't want to just live in a castle and be a plaything for some idiot prince who I don't even know. So she runs away, runs into some people in the woods forest, helps them. Turns out that that guy, the people she ran into, was the prince of the neighboring kingdom, the second prince of the neighboring kingdom, and they quickly fall like pretty far into love. It's a sweet little series. It's not, in saying that, there's kind of like a lot of action and drama and stuff that happens in it. It's not like the same level as a Yona, but there's some teeth to this. There's a lot going on, and I really appreciate this series because both of our characters our romantic leads are very supportive of each other. They both have goals outside of each other that they're trying to reach, and that the other will support them on. You can understand why they like each other. All of the other like supporting cast is really great. This is one of the more interesting supporting cast. This is Obi. Love him. I was tweeting about this earlier. So is it this volume? I don't know how like intentional Akiduki is trying to make our main couple and this guy like a throuple, but it's not unthinkable that could happen. Because so he was like a bandit, or some kind of not an assassin necessarily. He was some sort of bandit, some sort of bad guy who was turned good, was shown the light by Shiryuki, and has joined the prince's entourage, as it were, as Shiryuki's personal bodyguard, and basically just a friend, confidant to the prince. And I don't know, like these are literally the pages that I was tweeting about. Like, how are they not all three of them in love with each other? Like, it's pretty dang not unthinkable. But regardless, even if you don't like subscribe to that idea, the actual main couple is really sweet. All of the supporting characters are really lovely. It's not a fantasy series. It doesn't have. It feels like Yona, if Yona had. Well, I don't know. It feels kind of like Dawn of the Arcana, like not super fantastical. There's no magic in it. It's more down to earth, but there's also like plot and political stuff going on, and like actual conflict, which isn't like romance relationship conflict as well, which is really nice. Like I get really tired of the miscommunication and stuff that you normally see in like the high school set shoujo romance. It doesn't have any of that. It has like, oh, there is a mysterious illness happening in this kingdom, and we don't know the cure, and we're like, I'm going to try and find out what's causing it. Because I am a herbalist, and so this is my skill set. You, as a prince, have more power to like influence people and try and stop the spread of this by, preventing people from coming in and out of this country, and thus we work together, although apart. We are working in tandem, and that's supportive relationships, guys. And the reason that they might not, that like it's very obvious that they like each other, and they don't dance around it either. They aren't like super overtly like in your face about it, but there's also other stuff of, well, this guy is a prince, right? He's the second born prince, but he's still a prince. And so it's not like really expected for him to marry for love, especially not to a commoner who is a herbalist. So that may also be something that is impacting where their relationship may go. But despite that, they are keen to work through that and to overcome that. And you're like, I want it to work out. It's really sweet. Like I was really excited when this finally got licensed. Finally, it was a surprise license, honestly. This has 23 volumes in Japanese currently, so we're a little less than halfway through. It does have quite a quick release schedule though, so we're not too far behind, or we're not going to be too far behind for too long, as it were. But if you're wanting something, if you don't mind shoujo, and if you're wanting something with like a really solid relationship, and you've already read Yona, and you've already read like some of the other stuff that's coming out, and you're not interested in some of the other stuff coming out, give this one a try. Don't be put off by the title as well. Like Snow White with the Red Hair, I don't know if that title really, like, it's what the title is, right? That's what it's called, but I don't know if that tells you anything about the series, especially because Shirayuki is like white snow, right? That's her name. And so maybe like that's why it's called that. But Snow White, I think, brings up a different image versus who Shirayuki actually is. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not making any sense because it is midnight. But yeah, so really, really happy that I was able to read Volume 8 and Volume 9. And the situation that I said about the mysterious disease, mysterious illness in a town, that was the plot of these two books. Like, I didn't invent that. That's just what was actually in these books. And it ended on a cliffhanger, I think. Not really. Like, it ended in a good spot, but I want our heroes to be reunited because I care about them. But yeah, so that was the penultimate stuff that I read this week. Only one more series to talk about, and I won't be talking about for too long, I don't think. But last thing that I read for this week was the next chunk of volumes for Slam Dunk, volumes 21 to 25. So again, like with all of the library manga that I've had recently, for Slam Dunk, we have a mixture of the Viz and the Chiangyi releases. And okay, so I've said it before that I'm like not a sports person. I do enjoy sports manga a lot. Like, I love Haikyuu. I love sports anime. Free is, we know that I'm an unabashed Free fangirl. Like, and I've watched a lot of and read a lot of stuff. I've read Kuroko and watched Kuroko, which is dumb as hell, but it was fun. Yomushi Pedal, which is also within that same dumb as hell but fun, and made me cry. But like I do like good sports series. I'm not the athletic type. It, as may be obvious, but I'm not really a sportsman or sportswoman. And I don't think that there's too many sports that I understand less than I understand baseball. I understand baseball. No, that I understand basketball. I've read 25 volumes of this, and I feel like I still don't know how this game is played. Like, I know some stuff. Like, I know you dribble the ball, and like you shoot the ball, and there's points, and you slam dunk, and the alley oop, and the stuff. Right? I know stuff, but I feel like I'm still continually learning, and I feel like at 25 volumes in, I should already know this stuff. But that's maybe because I'm just really not interested in basketball. So this chunk of books focuses on the end of the, I guess, prelims for the finals, and then the first two games of the finals. And also, okay, so this is a 31 volume series, I think. 31 or 32 volumes in its entirety. I feel like, despite being 25 volumes through, not a lot has happened. There's been, like, games that they've played, and we've been introduced to the main, like, team characters, which is important. That's great. But I don't know what this series will do in an additional 6 volumes that will make it, like, so amazing, so wonderful, that, like, this is a well-loved series. And I'm not trying to talk down or talk bad about it, because I know a lot of people love it. And Inoue is a great mangaka. I am interested in reading Real. I've read a lot of his other stuff, but it did take me a while to, like, warm up to the cast, the team. And I did like it. I do like them now. But, like, okay, so we have a rivalry between these two characters. And in saying that, yes, these two characters, in saying that, like, it never feels like this rivalry is going to be really properly addressed, or, like, that the characters are actually going to talk to each other about it or confront each other about it outside of the jokey, like, oh, haha stuff that's happened already. I don't know. 6 volumes is maybe a lot, but also not a lot, right? So, I don't know. I do think it's fun. I do like it. I do think it's funny. Like, it does have very good comedic timing. And these dumb boys are likable, but also, like, I don't want to compare it to other sports series, but in my brain when I'm reading it, I do kind of compare it to Haikyuu, because it has sort of a similar setup, different sport, obviously, but it has the rivalry, but the rivals are on the same team. And there's, in that series, they work together. In this series, I don't know if they've literally ever worked together one time, and it's been 25 volumes. And I thought basketball was a team sport, but maybe not. No, I'm being facetious. Like, it does cover some of this stuff, but I don't think it covers it necessarily enough. I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense. And I'm not trying to be harsh on it. Also, and this is the other thing that, like, maybe my opinion would be different if I watched the show or if I owned the Viz volumes. But the Changyi releases are hard to get through. I mean, they're... Okay. I'm going to try and find an example. And I talked about this the last time I talked about the series, because the Changyi releases, they don't feel like professional releases, and that's not to put down the work of the Singaporean team who put these books together. These books predate these books by 6 years. So just like the amount that manga publishing may have changed in those 6 years is quite a lot. Like this came out in 2006, this came out in 2012. So like those are two very different periods of publishing in manga time. It may be why this feels both clunky and amateurish and doesn't feel quite right. So I can't, oh my god, I don't know why I can't find an, okay, I found one, right? So look at this speech bubble here. You see how it goes, ha ha ha, Hanamichi just added fuel to the fire. But Hanamichi is over 2 lines, and there's not even like a comma, not a comma, a hyphen. There's not even a dash, no hyphen. So it just looks like Hanamik High just added fuel to the fire. And that happens a lot. Like a lot. And again, I don't want to say that the people working on this didn't care about the series, or they didn't like care about the release, or they were just bad at their jobs or whatever. But I mean, I am no expert in publishing, but I do have a degree in publishing, right? So when I was taught was that, for one, you always break a line at the syllable, right? So it would be, if you had to break it over 2 lines, it would be Hana dash Michi. So it feels more, one, you put the dash in because now right there it just looks like Hana Mike High. But you would typically break that up in a different way to put it over 2 lines. And there's some like, there's instances where it's like Rukawa and it couldn't fit all on 1 line, and so they just put Ruka and then next line A. And I was like, that, excuse me? Also, like, maybe it's just a limitation of the series in being shorter, like in being 30 volumes and having to cram so many games and so many teams and that into it. But there's a lot of like telling, not showing. There's a lot of like, oh, this team is so amazing, they're so wonderful, these guys are so bad. And like, I mean, I kind of appreciate it because I literally do not know what is good and bad in basketball. So I'm, again, no expert. But when comparing to other sports series that I've read, not just Haikyuu, even the dumb but fun ones like Kuroko and Yomushi Pedal, the rival teams, the various hundreds of characters that are playing the sport or participating in these races or whatever are memorable. And I don't think there's like 2 or 3 characters in this outside of the main cast. I don't know why this camera just keeps going out of focus. Thank you. Every time I mention it, no, I don't know. But there's like maybe 2 or 3 characters, not teams, characters that outside of our main cast, our main 5, and like the 2 substitute players, bench warmers who are somewhat important to the plot. That I know, and I couldn't tell you their names. I just am like, I recognize your face. Sendo, is that one of them? Sendo, and the other like guy who had the rivalry with the captain, and I don't even know if there's another one. Oh, the monkey guy. I mean, I say that. There's like 4 characters they call gorilla or monkey or this or that. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know. Oh, I mean, the the guy who is on, is it Sendai? I don't know if that's his name. You see my dilemma, right? It's been a fun time, but like I don't necessarily think I would read Slam Dunk again. Maybe my opinions will have changed when I read the end of it. Who knows? But I don't know how much work the series would have to do in the last 6 volumes to like really grab me and to make me go, that was amazing. That was my favorite sports series. That was everything I wanted and more. And I 100% need to buy this and own this to reread every year. When do they play basketball? Like what time of year? Summer, maybe. I know nothing about it. It's an indoor sport, so I guess you could play it any time of the year. But whenever the will, grabs me, I could read it. But right now, it doesn't feel that way. Also, I feel like the team, they're in nationals right now. They're in the national, not playoffs. They're in the national competition tournament. That's the word I'm looking for. With a character who is our main character, so he's obviously like who we're following, but he has literally never played basketball in his life, aside from like the 3 months that he's been playing with the team. You got the rival character who's actually good at basketball, and all the other characters are good at basketball, but one of them hasn't been playing for like 2 years, and then so it's just like 3 guys out of 5 guys picking up the slack. Well, I mean, maybe it's all 4 guys. I feel like for a team that's just hasn't had like very much success in the past because their only good player was the captain / the point guard. I don't know the positions. Don't ask me. Do not ask me the positions. I can't tell you. Miyagi, whatever his role is, he and Akane, the captain, were the good ones, and then the Mitsui like came back after being a delinquent, and Rukawa's a first year, and Sakamichi's a first year. I'm like, this is, I don't know if I want to think that you guys could get to the finals. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't know. Maybe I'm being judgmental because this is a sport I don't know if I will ever love, but it's not a bad series, obviously. It has a lot of fans. Despite my issues with the translation and the editorial quality of these particular books, like the art is still great. It's still funny. It's still got like pretty good timing, but it's not my favorite. And that's just me being honest about it. But there's only six or 7 more volumes to go, so I'm not too far off from the end. I'll finish it up, but I need to actually wait until my library gets those volumes because I do not think they have volumes past 26. I don't know. But with that, I finished, and that didn't actually take too long. I mean, it was over an hour, which I prefer was at an hour, but I do need to go to bed. For those who didn't jump in straight away, it's late. It's midnight here, and I have to be up at 5:30 yet again tomorrow for work / later today for work. So I am going to go to bed, go to sleep. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was interesting. I hope this was got you interested in these particular titles, or if you'd read some of them, or As always, it's really wonderful seeing everyone's comments in the comment section whilst I'm reading. I'm glad that there's so much enthusiasm for a bride story. But also, everybody go read Bakuno. Like, literally, everyone just go read Bakuno. Yeah, if you missed the first part of this video, then be sure to watch it after the fact, because I do keep them up available. And I don't know why the camera keeps going out of focus. Hopefully that will not happen next time, but I cannot guarantee it. But, but I'm glad that everyone seemed to enjoy it. I will catch you in the next video. As always, is the link handle over here. Oh my god, this way. I don't know which way. It's collecting G. This one. And as for our upcoming videos, who knows? I literally could not tell you. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video, and bye till then. If this would actually focus, it won't. So